Special thanks to Tokyo Treat and Sakurako for sponsoring today's video. Before we begin, there will be spoilers for the 1000-year Blood War arc of Bleach in the video to come. Ichigo's development throughout Bleach is punctuated by his various transformations. Whether that's activating bankai for the very first time, transforming into a savage, hollow-like monster, or acquiring a power that looks and feels completely new, each one heralds a new dawn for the main character. And I personally have always really liked Ichigo's developmental arc, and I'd like to do a full video on it one day, but this time we're taking a brief look at one of Ichigo's final surprises. The 1000-year Blood War arc is a weird one for Ichigo. He comes full circle in understanding his powers, and in a sense completes his journey, growing stronger and more confident than ever before. Yet at the same time, completing his journey is really only the beginning. Ichigo's true powers merely unlock brand new doors for him to open. The perfect example of this comes right at the end of the arc, as Ichigo struggles to overcome Yhwach himself as they clash in his newly forged throne room atop the fortress of Varvelt. While many of us were expecting to see Ichigo's true bankai during this fight, and that does happen later, replete with some surprises of its own, instead he first unleashes a totally new transformation, one that seems to finally outwardly mix his Shinigami and Hollow powers in an organic way. There had to be one more new form, I suppose, before the very end, one tantalizing tease of what incredible heights Ichigo is now capable of reaching. And so, after shaking Zangetsu awake with a barrage of Yhwach's own Quincy Reiatsu, Ichigo changes. And as the dust clears, his new form, known as the Horn of Salvation, appears. The name Horn of Salvation is an interesting one. It comes from the title of chapter 676, where Ichigo fights using this form for the very first time. So rather than anything official, the community bestowed this form its name based on the chapter it appeared in. And this isn't anything new either. Another famous example, of course, was the community's original name for Yhwach, Buckbeard, taken from the title of the chapter of his first appearance back in 484. But what is the deal with this new form of Ichigo's? Right off the bat, it's clear that this is a step above anything we've ever seen before, to the point where it looks borderline experimental. And in some ways, that's exactly what it is. As the larger of Zangetsu's blades turns a brilliant bone white, one massive yet familiar horn protrudes from the side of Ichigo's head as his hair stands on end. This form draws obvious and immediate similarities to the horned beast that Ichigo became during his fight with Ulquiorra, but things are different now. With a warm smile and a glint in his single human eye, it's clear that this time Ichigo is very much in charge. So, what exactly is this Horn of Salvation form of Ichigo's, and what does it mean for his growth? As Ichigo masters his newly completed power, how can we expect this form to change and evolve over time? And will we ever see it again? It feels like the glimpse we got of this transformation against Yhwach was merely a tease, and there's perhaps a lot more to this than meets the eye. So let's take a look. Before we get started on the video, guys, if you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure to do that now for more Bleach content like this every single week. And if you enjoyed the video, when you're done with it, make sure to give it a thumbs up as well to help support me and the channel. And if you want to take that support for me another step further, I do also have a Patreon as well. And as always, I want to give a massive shout out and say a huge thank you to everyone supporting me there over on Patreon. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you all so very much. Say what you will about the 1000-year Blood War arc, specifically the final third or so, but I've always adored the way Kubo introduced the Horn of Salvation form. As soon as the dust clears on Ichigo's new look, our eyes are immediately drawn to the horn in question, the most prominent feature of his transformation, and of course a direct reference to the horned mask he was wearing when he mindlessly tore Ulquiorra apart all those years ago. But we're not the only ones that notice it. The fear in Orihime's eyes when she catches sight of that singular horn is expertly done. A brilliant example of showing and not telling, as she's instantly transported back atop the dome of Las Noches, back to the time she watched Ichigo die and resurrect in front of her, becoming a shadow that she no longer knew. Kubo doesn't need Orihime to blurt out that she's terrified Ichigo has lost himself once more. You know exactly what's going through her mind without words being spoken. It's also just an excellent callback to a past instance of Ichigo's powers, and a smart way of showing how far he's come, and how much control he's gained. He's tapping into that power, sure, but with a single word and a flash of a toothy grin, Orihime's fears are shattered, and we know he's the real deal. Firstly then, how does this form come to be? How is it activated? It's actually here that we get the clearest explanation of Ichigo's current standing to date. The two sides of his power. The Quincy power he inherited from Masaki, which took the shape of Old Man Zangetsu, and the Shinigami power he inherited from Isshin, which was fused with White's Hollow Reiatsu after Isshin bound himself to its soul for so many years, took the shape of Ichigo's hollow self. And once Ichigo finally achieved equilibrium between these two opposing forces, they were brought together and forged into two separate blades, both to be known as Zangetsu, which is Ichigo's true Shikai as we know it today. Ichigo goes on to say that achieving that balance has made Zangetsu behave himself, essentially saying his power is lying dormant. It's lying in wait. But tipping that balance by overcharging Zangetsu with some kind of Reiatsu should unleash him once again, which is exactly what Ichigo does, allowing himself to be purposefully struck by wave upon wave of Yhwach's Quincy Reiatsu at the start of their battle. It's awesome that every time Zangetsu has involuntarily appeared to help Ichigo in the past, it's been due to Ichigo being engulfed by a huge amount of Reiatsu from a specific race. The first time Zangetsu appears in this way, it's as Ichigo is about to be overcome by Byakuya's bankai, the culmination of Shinigami power. And the second time Zangetsu rescues Ichigo is after he's been killed by Ulquiorra's hollow power. This time, it's Quincy power to complete the trifecta, except the difference now is that Ichigo is knowingly calling for Zangetsu's aid. This both demonstrates just how skilled and how in command Ichigo has become. He has the tightest grasp on his powers and abilities that he has presumably ever had, while at the same time showing just how far he still has to go, as he himself laments that he should be able to activate this form on a whim, but can't yet do it. One day, hopefully, we'll see Ichigo able to simply transform into his Horn of Salvation self after he's taken the time to master this power further. What's interesting about this form, and this is a point I've brought up before, is that it definitely evokes Hollow more than anything else, as Yhwach himself says. Now, Ichigo's Shinigami powers are fused with his hollow powers, so he is using both here, but I wonder if there's a version of this where visually his Shinigami self comes out on top, and this is actually something we will bring up later as well. I also speculated there might be a form that focuses on his Quincy powers instead, perhaps making him resemble Old Man Zangetsu in some way. It would be very fitting, I think, for Bleach's true, natural-born hybrid to reach a stage where he can essentially look deep within himself, choose one of his powers, and then transform in kind. And honestly, that would be kind of awesome. A catalogue of different forms available to him at any one time. A true sign of the hybrid nature of his soul. And that begs the question that we asked at the start of this video. What actually is this form? It's not Bankai, it's not Resurrection, it's not Vollständisch, so what on earth is it? Well, I think the answer is actually both simple and kind of abstract. It's something brand new. It's an unnamed hybrid state. Ichigo is the first natural-born hybrid of all races in Bleach that we've seen to this kind of degree, that we've seen reach this level of maturity and power, and this transformation is unique to him because of that hybrid Reiatsu he possesses, and because of Ichigo's unique standing within the world of Bleach, there's no precedent for anything like this. No one else can do this, no one else can perform this change, this evolution. When Yhwach asks Ichigo if what he's seeing is the hollow melded with Ichigo's power, he's clearly inquiring specifically about the hollow aspects of Ichigo's visual design. And that is the fusion at its most literal. The hollow horn is quite literally coming out of Ichigo's head. There's no mask here at all, and that takes us nicely onto our discussion about this form's visual design. So we've already mentioned Ichigo's horn, but the entire left side of his body is now markedly more hollow-like in appearance. As I mentioned, his mask is gone. In fact, we haven't seen Ichigo use a hollow mask since Deicide, and with good reason. The mask, as cool as it was an aberration, a symbol of the divide between Ichigo and his hollow powers, not the other way around. Once Ichigo accepted the hollow fused with Tensor Zangetsu in Deicide, the mask never reappeared again, because that divide was finally excised. Now, as a perfect hybrid, Ichigo's face is the mask. It's become the mask, for lack of a better term. The black markings that once ran down his mask now run down his skin, his bare face, and his eye, which only changed to the black and yellow look of a hollow when he called his mask out before, is now that of a hollow's with no mask in sight, because he is technically wearing it already. The markings run down his chest and along his shoulders, showing the all-encompassing influence of his hollow power coursing through his veins before meeting in the center of his chest. It's hard to tell if the black circle in the center of Ichigo's chest is an actual hollow hole here, or just a marking designed to look like one. The markings coalesce into the centre of his chest, which is where his hollow hole once was, but to be honest, I'm not sure it would thematically make sense for Ichigo to have an actual hollow hole anymore. Now that he's finally achieved balance among his powers, he should have access to all of their benefits without the drawbacks that he has already overcome, and the symptoms of those drawbacks as well. Also, while in this form, his longer blade is now a stark white, gradually changing in colour to signify the activation of this form. It's cool as well to see how his previous look, that of a Shinigami, has been shredded thanks to this transformation, as though something within Ichigo has been unshackled. For example, Ichigo's sandals have been blown wide open, effectively making him barefoot, another parallel to his monstrous form from the battle with Ulquiorra. Overall, the Horn of Salvation isn't Ichigo's best or slickest looking transformation. If anything, it looks a bit jumbled, a bit all over the place, but I assume that's the point. This is the first time Ichigo has really been able to tap into his hybrid nature in this way, and as an actual outward fusion of different races, it's bound to look busy. I do wonder how, if at all, the form will change or streamline over time. But now, before we continue, a word from today's sponsor. Well, it's been a few months, but I'm very pleased to welcome back familiar faces Tokyo Treat and Sakurako to the channel once again as today's sponsor to help spread the joy of Japan through the medium of snacks, which everybody loves. Now, each month, these Japanese snack subscription boxes have a different theme, and November's boxes are no different. This time, Tokyo Treat's theme takes us to the enchanting Mount Fuji, one of Japan's most famous natural landmarks, for the Mount Fuji Snack Venture theme, while Sakurako's theme is the wonders of Saitama, partnering with Saitama City for a special limited edition box design. Now, Tokyo Treat and Sakurako offer very different experiences. Yes, they both contain an assortment of delicious snacks and Japanese-inspired treats, but they do so in different ways. Tokyo Treat is a monthly pop Japanese snack subscription box that nets you up to 20 of the latest limited edition and seasonal snacks, and this month for our Mount Fuji Snack Venture, that includes a Mount Fuji green tea cake, Mount Fuji sandwich cookie, okonomiyaki corn puffs, and some gaburichu soft candy. The Mount Fuji theme is really awesome, celebrating one of Japan's most impressive icons, and you can find out even more about it and this month's snack lineup in the detailed booklet that comes with every box. Kirby even makes an appearance this time.
Meanwhile, Sakurako is a monthly authentic Japanese snack box that supports local Japanese snack makers. Each box includes 20 traditional artisan Japanese snacks, as well as authentic Japanese tea and even special Japanese tableware. This month, we've got a pair of Wasaka crane chopsticks. The crane design on them symbolises longevity and good fortune. Of course, the snacks found in Sakurako's box this month celebrate the city of Saitama and include Sayama tea, daifuku, walnut mochi, a strawberry cookie, and some Saitama pear gummies, infused with the sweet juice of the famous Saigyoku pears, a Saitama delicacy. And once again, the Sakurako box comes with a fantastic booklet devoted to highlighting the culture and history of Saitama itself.
No matter which box you choose, both are designed to bring Japan to you, whether through the fun and thrill of an adventure on Mount Fuji or by experiencing the cultural delights of Saitama City. Tokyo Treat and Sakurako share a common goal, to help you experience Japan from the comfort of your own home, and we're going to do that right now.
Yes.
Right, Jade, starting with the Tokyo Treat box, can you tell me what this is?
Okay, so this is the Deca Vita vitamin C drink. This popular energy drink is just what you need to get you through a day of hiking up Mount Fuji.
Makes sense.
Chris Broad-Natsuki could have done with that.
Yes.
Anyone else see that when they climbed Mount Fuji recently?
Shout out to abroad in Japan.
It's like an energy drink.
There you go. Do you want to try it? Do you want to crack the can? Crack open a cold one?
Ooh.
This is going to give you a lot of pep.
Oh my god. Wow.
Is that good?
That is good. It's energizing.
Now, I'm a huge chocolate lover, so I couldn't pass these up. And they're called Crunky, which sounds pretty cool to me.
So these are Crunky chocolate almond bites.
Oh.
A peak flavour experience.
There you go. Yep.
Okay.
We're all good.
Tom, I've got a question for you about Bleach.
Okay.
Because we all know I'm so knowledgeable about Bleach. What was your favourite bankai in the latest season?
Well, probably Senjumaru's bankai, because it's completely new, brand new. No one who read the source material, it wasn't in there basically. So that was probably number one for me.
Surprise bankai.
As I think it would be for most people, to be honest. Trying to remember the name of that one, not easy. Shatatsu Karagara Shigarami no Suji. You got to learn these things.
That's impressive.
Is it impressive or is it? Yeah. Look at these cool chopsticks we got. Whoa. I like the red colour. I think they came in red or black, and I think we lucked out with the red one.
I'm glad we got the red ones, yeah. Next thing we're trying, strawberry cookie, nice and simple.
Here it is.
Enjoy the delectable flavour of Saitama's beloved strawberry cookie. Delight your palate with the essence of strawberry.
Sounds great, yeah. Oh, look at that. That was a decent kind
You didn't do it on camera.
It wasn't really in half. Well, it wasn't really in half anyway, but there you go.
Next question. What was your favourite fight?
That's a good one. I would be inclined to say the new battle between the Zero Division and Yhwach's Elite Guard, because that was what I was clamouring for so long. But in terms of actual anime adaptation, I'm going to pick a fight that you actually saw, which is Rukia versus Asnot. I thought that was probably my favourite one.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
You did see that, yeah.
I love Asnot.
For some reason. I mean, so do I.
Cool design. I just love his
Yeah, he does have a cool design.
Yeah.
Yeah, also this is really good. This is very nice. I
I've
like
eaten all
the
of
pink colour is quite satisfying. But yeah, that would be my fight, probably. My favourite fight there. But I mean, there was a lot of good ones, but I think that was probably the one they adapted the best. Okay, and for the last treat we're going to try, well, sweet potato, what is that? Sweet potato Danish?
This is sweet potato Danish. Here you go. Buttery notes, apparently.
Don't really know how we're going to split this one.
Oh, we've managed before. We just get it everywhere.
We'll try and get it on the camera this time.
Yeah, you've got it back.
Oh, there you go.
I think it wasn't too
It kind of went everywhere, but we're all good.
Baked goods.
Yeah, baked. Yeah.
Right. Okay, Tom, and for this last treat, what was your favourite episode?
I actually ranked the episodes, all 26 of them so far.
Shameless plug.
But my favourite episode of the new season would be the last episode, which was episode 26, Black. Not my favourite 1000 Year Blood War episode of all time, though. Episode 6 and then 7 still beat it, but excellent finale. Ended a little bit too soon, but excellent finale. Oh,
I heard you reacting to it from the other room.
yeah, sorry about that.
He was very loud.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah. What do you think of the sweet potato?
It's good. Yeah, it's nice.
Really nice.
I've never really had sweet potato in something like this before, and I wasn't really sure what to expect, but yeah, it's good.
It's just really sweet.
Funny that. Alright, but that's a wrap on the latest boxes from Tokyo Treat and Sakurako. I want to say a big thank you to them once again for sponsoring today's video and continuing to support the channel. It really is appreciated. As always, if you'd like to try these snack boxes for yourself, you can do just that by following the links down in the description or the pinned comment, and make sure to use the code down below as it appears on screen now, somewhere down here, for $5 off. Thanks everyone and enjoy, and thanks again to Tokyo Treat and Sakurako for sponsoring today's video. Interestingly, Ichigo sheaths his smaller blade in this form when he steps into battle, perhaps indicating he isn't planning on using any Quincy power here at all, and is only leaning on the fusion of Shinigami and Hollow. Again, I like this notion that Ichigo could mix and match power sets as he sees fit. Maybe he instinctively felt Quincy Reiatsu wouldn't be any use here against Yhwach. We get to see Ichigo use the Horn of Salvation briefly against the Quincy King, though it is criminally short in the grand scheme of things, and I would be more than happy if the anime decided to extend its appearance here. But Ichigo steps forward, appearing in front of Orihime and beyond the reach of her shield without her perceiving him at all. And next up is an interesting comparison, and one that feels very intentional. Ichigo tells Orihime to step back and protect herself from his power using her Rika, which, by the way, is Ichigo's own way of acknowledging how strong Orihime has become by this point, that he believes she's capable of defending herself from his incredible power, likely helped along by him witnessing her block Yhwach's own attack earlier in the fight. As she does so, Ichigo uses his spiritual pressure to annihilate the entirety of Silburn itself, which was sitting atop Varvelt, reducing the whole palace to rubble. Honestly, despite being presented via some impressive double-page spreads, I actually think this sequence moves too quickly. It's difficult to comprehend the scale of Ichigo's power, of what he's actually achieved here, but as we see later on, he has effortlessly obliterated basically the entire top level of Varvelt, which, as you can see from some of these earlier wider shots, included the Palace of Silburn itself, which used to be the headquarters of the Vandenreich. But this feels like a direct reference to and comparison with Yhwach himself. Upon his absorption of the Soul King in chapter 626, his first move is to use the sheer force of his power to obliterate, you guessed it, the top of the Soul King Palace. Now, while we don't get to spend a lot of time with this form, what we do get to see is extremely impressive. Yhwach, equally impressed with Ichigo's raw strength, attempts to draw his sword, but in a very cool sequence, Ichigo is immediately upon him, moving so quickly that he's able to restrain Yhwach before the Quincy King can even move his hand. As Yhwach lifts his sword just a tiny bit, Ichigo's own hand clamps down on Yhwach's, forcing it downwards as Ichigo then raises his own blade, ready to strike, bringing it down like a pendulum in a massive sweeping arc, the force of the swing itself resulting in a huge blast. However, Ichigo is shocked to see that despite his speed and ferocity, Yhwach has simply caught his blade in his bare hand. As Yhwach swipes at Ichigo with his own reishi blade, Ichigo goes spiraling backwards into the air, blood spraying in front of him. However, even this seems to have been a part of Ichigo's plan. Yhwach watches in awe as Ichigo lifts his blade to meet the tip of his horn. From the blade, Ichigo charges a Getsuga Tensho, but from the horn, he begins to charge a Sero. This is the first and I believe the only time we ever see Ichigo himself use a Sero of his own volition, something the readership had been clamouring to see for years at that point. As Yhwach realises what's going on, he's too late. Ichigo has also merged his blood with the Sero as well, turning it into a Gran Rei Sero, which he then combines with Getsuga Tensho, unleashing a Crimson Crescent Moon arc of power at the Quincy King, which seemingly carves right into Yhwach's body, shredding him with the brutality of a saw blade. This is a fantastic moment, but I'm sad to say it's really the highlight of Ichigo's time using Horn of Salvation. After this, Ichigo very quickly and abruptly finds himself on the back foot, unable to really do much else. As Ichigo releases the Getsuga Gran Rei Sero at Yhwach, we see that momentarily what looks like the fanged visage of his hollow mask appears over his face. But crucially, it is still Ichigo's face, there's just an additional toothy pattern now spreading across it, alongside the markings that were there originally. Presumably this is a result of Ichigo drawing out even more of his hollow power, perhaps completely here. Again, it's interesting that the hollow nature of his power seems to take precedence visually here. Does anything about his appearance change because he's using a Getsuga Tensho? Or could it if he used some other Shinigami power instead? What about Getsuga Jujisho, for instance? I have this vision in my head of Ichigo as the perfect hybrid. His appearance can change depending on the power set and Reiatsu he wants to prioritize, and maybe eventually, if he chooses to, he could use really anything at all. A Zanpakuto, a Sero, a Quincy Bow even, and his appearance would alter slightly to reflect each. People have historically mocked or complained about Ichigo inheriting the powers of every race as we move through the different arcs, but I think they fundamentally can't possibly understand the point of the character. Ichigo is a perfect hybrid to begin with, so no matter which of the major races are then introduced, he will have facets of their strength no matter what. That's what's so special about him. He is born from the essence of everything that makes up the world of Bleach. The Quincy connection is arguably the most tenuous, as it is only introduced in the final arc, but even then I think it works perfectly well, and it actually brings Masaki's character to the spotlight. However, the biggest sin of this fight is that it simply will not let Ichigo do anything. It never cuts him a break. Every awesome thing Ichigo does is undercut almost immediately, and that's a huge shame. It means the true capabilities of the Horn of Salvation are basically totally unknown. Yes, Ichigo is going toe-to-toe with Yhwach, but to say he's overpowering him wouldn't really be accurate. Ichigo displays this insurmountable power when he destroys the palace, and this impossible speed when he blitzes Yhwach, but it's all for nothing because Yhwach catches his blade bare-handed with just as much ease as Aizen did all those chapters before him. Ichigo releases this incredible, never-before-seen mixture of Getsuga Tensho and a Gran Rei Sero, but it's pointless because Yhwach simply shatters it without it doing any real damage. And then when Yhwach decides to activate the Almighty at last, it feels like a double-edged sword. On the one hand, he's paying respect to Ichigo's new power, basically saying that he isn't sure if he can win if he continues fighting without it. But on the other hand, it's a little insulting to Ichigo in this new form that Yhwach reveals he could have crushed him immediately at any time simply by activating the Almighty. Earlier, I praised Kubo for his ability to show and not tell in regards to how Orihime was feeling upon seeing Ichigo's new form, in regards to the fear in her eyes. Unfortunately, here with Yhwach, we are getting the exact opposite. Rather than showing us how Ichigo is totally dominating, overpowering, and pushing Yhwach to the absolute brink, Kubo instead relies on Yhwach actively telling us on numerous occasions, saying to Ichigo, your power is magnificent, so magnificent that I can no longer lower my guard, and later on, rather than let Ichigo actually use his bankai to demonstrate how powerful it is, he simply has Yhwach say, your bankai is so terrifying that I had to destroy it. So while Ichigo's strength and ability in this form truly is fantastic, it's kind of impossible to know what the ceiling is here. Can Ichigo do more than he lets on, or is he really totally out of tricks the moment Yhwach activates the Almighty? From that point on, Ichigo chooses to use bankai instead, so I wonder if the Horn of Salvation is more of a new stopgap stage between Shikai and bankai that only Ichigo has access to. In terms of its power, at least, anyway. But, as I mentioned at the top of the video, the 1000-Year Blood War arc does feel like the conclusion of Ichigo's journey in many ways, as it should, being it's the final arc of Bleach. From learning the truth of his parents to forging his Zanpakuto and finally understanding what the dynamic between Shinigami and Zanpakuto is meant to be, to taking on numerous sternritter without breaking a sweat, Ichigo has absolutely grown. And yet, Horn of Salvation feels like a tease of new horizons to come still. Ichigo himself mentions he hasn't yet learned how to call this power out at will, implying there's still ample room for growth and training. In that sense, it's also the start of a new adventure for the character as well, and I actually quite like that. Kubo puts some kind of a cap on Ichigo in the 1000-Year Blood War arc to show that some kind of arc has been completed, but leaves the door open for the future as well. For example, if the Hell arc does happen, but Kubo had totally finished with Ichigo's character in the 1000-Year Blood War arc, well, that wouldn't leave us many options, and he'd be pretty boring in the new arc if he had nothing to show or strive for at all. It's possible as of the Hell chapter that Ichigo has already mastered this form, but even then, that potentially gives us something new to look forward to seeing. But this transformation is the culmination of everything Ichigo has gone through so far, and that is fantastic. And admittedly, outside of honing and training further with this power, I'm not sure what else there is really for Ichigo to do. Certainly that conflict inside him that drove him this far has long since been settled. But from the earliest days of the Rankar arc, where an embattled Ichigo struggled with his inner hollow, to the conflict between the two represented by the mask Ichigo wore and his descent into darkness in Waco Mundo, right to the battle atop the dome, where that darkness completely consumed him, he came out the other side a totally changed man. It's a shame we don't get to see more from this form, but it's also cool that we got to see it at all. Like I said, it was one last surprise from Ichigo before we got to see his long-awaited true bankai. There was a natural progression of anticipation for Ichigo throughout the second half of the 1000-Year Blood War arc that worked really well. Unlike in the Rankar arc, where Ichigo uses bankai basically the entire time, things play out more as you would expect them to here in the 1000-Year Blood War, with Ichigo utilising his Shikai for virtually the entire second half of the arc, before revealing everything he has up his sleeves in time for the grand finale. Unfortunately, that does mean it hits a little harder when those reveals don't quite land or quite live up to expectation, but there you go. Personally, I think that hurts Ichigo's true bankai more than it hurts the Horn of Salvation. So, what is the deal with this form of Ichigo's then? Well, unlike his horned transformation atop the dome, this one is actually kind of spelled out for us in a sense. It's a reflection of Ichigo's merged powers now that he's finally attained balance. But it's also Ichigo actively tapping into one of those powers in particular. Here, the fusion of his Shinigami and Hollow powers and pulling them to the surface, leaving the Quincy side of him in the depths for now. Thinking about it, it's cool that Old Man Zangetsu revealed to Ichigo that he had been suppressing his true power this entire time without Ichigo even knowing. But now, Ichigo has free reign to pick and choose between them, bring some to the forefront while pushing others down, saving them for another time. I wonder if there's a version of Ichigo where all of his powers are brought to the surface in one go. Maybe that's his true bankai? That brings me to my last point. How powerful is this form, especially in comparison to the rest? Interestingly, I think Dangai Ichigo gets underplayed a lot these days, and while Horn of Salvation probably has more raw strength than Dangai Ichigo, I still think Ichigo, upon activating the final Getsuga Tensho and becoming one with Getsuga itself, is probably the absolute apex of his strength that we've seen to date. Don't forget that Dangai Ichigo is basically Ichigo undergoing the Blade is Me many years before he actually did. Although both he and we, the readers, didn't know it at the time, Ichigo faces the entirety of his power there at once and accepts it. The fusion of Tensa Zangetsu, which was his Quincy power, with the merged form of his Shinigami and Hollow power, as depicted by White, wearing both his horned mask and a white version of Ichigo's Bankai outfit, is the complete package. Sure, Ichigo finally learns the truth during the Blade is Me, but he had already accepted his power for what it really was back during Deicide, which is why he never uses a Hollow Mask again after that moment. Interestingly, the key differentiator then between Horn of Salvation Ichigo and Dangai Ichigo seems to be knowledge. Dangai Ichigo accepts his power for what it is without seemingly really knowing what it is, or at least believing he knows what it is at that time. Meanwhile, by the time Ichigo activates Horn of Salvation, he knows everything he needs to know about himself, his origins, and the origin of his unusual power. I guess what I'm saying is it always felt like Ichigo achieved inner balance during Deicide as well, but he didn't truly understand the relationship between Zanpakuto and Shinigami. It's also highly unlikely Old Man Zangetsu was restraining Ichigo's true power in that moment, as he allows Ichigo's Hollow and Shinigami power to fuse with him in one last-ditch effort to prevent Ichigo from learning the final Getsuga Tensho, whereas usually, as we see much earlier, Old Man Zangetsu is suppressing White, only allowing him out every now and then to help Ichigo train. So I guess it feels like the primary difference is knowledge, and therefore how Ichigo knows how to use his power. There's definitely more of an emphasis on Ichigo being able to use everything he has here, whereas Dangai Ichigo and subsequently the final Getsuga Tensho version of Ichigo certainly feel like they are definitively Shinigami-led forms. And that leads me back to the point I made at the start of the video. If Horn of Salvation is what Ichigo looks like when he prioritizes hollow powers over all else, then maybe if he chose to pull Shinigami powers to the surface predominantly, or if they took over visually, he might resemble the Mugetsu version of himself in some way. It's food for thought either way, we are just speculating. But those are just my thoughts regarding Ichigo's Horn of Salvation form and what little we see of it. Do you agree with my thoughts and theories at all? What did you think of this appearance when we first saw it, and how do you think it might have changed or evolved by the time we see it next? I'd love to know your thoughts and theories down in the comments below, and as always, I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to hit subscribe if you haven't done already for more Bleach content like this every single week. Give the video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it, and until next time guys, I'll catch you later, and I'll see you then.